Akinwande Oluwole Babatunde Wole Soyinka CFR is a Nigerian playwright, novelist, poet, and political activist who received the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1986. Wole Soyinka was born on July 13, 1934 in Abeokuta, near Ibadan in western Nigeria. His father, Samuel Ayodele Soyinka, was a prominent Anglican minister and headmaster. His mother, Grace Eniola Soyinka, who was called Wild Christian, was a shopkeeper and a local activist. As a child, he lived in an Anglican mission compound, learning the Christian teachings of his parents as well as the Yoruba spiritualism and tribal customs of his grandfather. He moved quickly from St. Peter's Primary School to the Abeokuta Grammar School and won a scholarship to the colony's premier secondary school, the Government College in Ibadan. Thanks to his father, young Wole Soyinka enjoyed access to books, not only the Bible and the English literature, but to classical Greek tragedies, which had a profound effect on his imagination. As a precocious reader, he soon sensed a link between the Yoruba folklore of his neighbors and the Greek mythology underlying so much of Western literature. After graduation at age 16 from the government college, Soyinka deferred immediate admission to university life and moved to the colonial capital, Lagos, to work in an uncle's pharmacy for 2 years before entering university. During this period of personal independence, he began writing plays for local radio. In 1950, he entered the university at Ibadan. 2 years later, won a scholarship to the University of Leeds in England and left Africa for the first time. At the University of Leeds in England, he served as the editor of the school magazine, The Eagle. He graduated with a bachelor's degree in English literature in 1958, and in 1972, the university awarded him an honorary doctorate. In England, he joined a close-knit community of West African students. Along with his fellow African students, Soyinka imagined a Pan-African movement to liberate South Africa. He went so far as to enlist in British program of student military education, in hopes that he could use this training in a future campaign against the apartheid regime in South Africa. After graduating from the University of Leeds, Wole Soyinka continued to study for a master's degree while writing plays, drawing on his Yoruba heritage. His first major work, The Swamp Dwellers and the Lion and the Jewel, dated from this period. In 1958, The Lion and the Jewel was accepted for production by the Royal Court Theatre in London. Upon his return to Nigeria, he founded the theatre group, the 1960 Max, and in 1964, the Orisun Theatre Company, in which he produced his own plays and performed as an actor. He wrote his first important play, A Dance of the Forest, a satire which was produced in 1960 and published in 1963 for the Nigerian independence celebration. He has periodically been a visiting professor at the University of Cambridge, Sheffield, and Yale. In Western Nigeria, the result of a 1964 regional election were set aside so that a candidate favored by the central government could claim victory. With some friends, Soyinka forced his way into the local radio station and substituted a tape of his own for the recorded message prepared by the fraudulent victor of the election. This escapade caused his arrest and detention for 2 months, but international publicity led to his acquittal. The discovery of oil in Southeast in 1965 further heightened ethnic and regional tension in Nigeria. The 1966 military coup, led by Igbo officers, was followed by a counter-coup which installed the young army officer Yakubu Gowon as head of state. Massacres of Igbo living in the north sent more than 1 million refugees fleeing south, and many Igbo began to call for secession from Nigeria. Hoping to avoid further bloodshed, Soyinka traveled in secret to meet with the secessionists, General Ojukwu, and urge a peaceful resolution. Soyinka was accused of collaborating with the Biafrans and went into hiding. Captured by Nigerian federal troops, he was imprisoned for the rest of the war. From his prison cell, he wrote a letter asserting his innocence and protesting his unlawful detention. When the letter appeared in the foreign press, he was placed in solitary confinement for 22 months. Despite being denied access to pen and paper, Soyinka managed to improvise writing materials and continued to smuggle his writing to the outside world. A volume of verse, Idanre, and other poems composed before the war was published to international acclaim during his imprisonment. By the end of 1969, the war was virtually over. Gowon and the Nigerian Federal Army had defeated the Biafran insurgency, and amnesty was declared, and Soyinka was released. Unable to return immediately to his old life, he repaired to a friend's farm in south of France. While recuperating, he wrote an adaptation of the classical tragedy, The Birch by Euripides. Across the millennia, the story of a state destroyed by a sudden eruption of senseless violence had acquired a special resonance for Soyinka. Another volume of verse, Poems from Prison, also known as A Shuttle in the Crypt, was published in London. In 1975, General Gowon was disposed, and Soyinka felt confident enough to return to Nigeria, where he became professor of comparative literature and head of the Department of Dramatic Art at the University of Ife. He published a new poetry collection, Ogu Abibima, and a collection of essays, Myth, Literature, and the African World, a comparative study of the roles of mythology and spirituality in the literary cultures of Africa and Europe. At the turn of the decades, Wole Soyinka's creativity was expanding in all directions. In 1981, he published the first of several volumes of autobiography, Ake, The Years of Childhood. In the early 1980s, he wrote two of his best-known plays, Requiem for a Futurologist and A Play of Giants, satirizing the new dictators of Africa. In 1984, he also directed the film Blues for a Prodigal. For years, Soyinka had written songs. In the 1980s, Nigerian music, including that of Soyinka's cousin, the flamboyant band leader Fela Ransom Kuti, was capturing the attention of listeners around the world. In 1984, Soyinka released an album of his own music titled I Love My Country, with an ensemble of musicians he called the Unlimited Liability Company. Soyinka also played a prominent role in Nigerian civil society. As a faculty member at the University of Ife, he led a campaign for road safety, organizing a civilian traffic authority to reduce the shocking rate of traffic fatalities on the public highways. His program became a model of traffic safety for other states in Nigeria, but events soon brought him into conflict with the national authorities. In an ominous sign, Soyinka prison memoir, A Man Died, was banned from publication. When Soyinka received his award from the King of Sweden in the ceremony in Stockholm, he took the opportunity to focus the world's attention on the continuing injustice of white rule in South Africa. His next book of verse was called Mandela's Earth and Other Poems. He followed this with two more plays, From Zaire with Love and The Beatification of Ariel Boy, along with a second collection of essays, Art, Dialogue, and Outrage. Meanwhile, Soyinka continued his criticism of the military dictatorship in Nigeria. In 1994, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization (UNESCO) named Wole Soyinka a Goodwill Ambassador for the promotion of African culture, human rights, and freedom of expression. Less than a month later, a military dictator, General Sani Abacha, suspended nearly all civil liberties. Soyinka escaped through Benin and fled to the United States. Soyinka judged Abacha to be the worst of the dictators who had imposed himself on Nigeria since independence. He was particularly outraged at Abacha's execution of the author Ken Saro-Wiwa, who was hanged in 1995 after a trial, condemned by the outside world. In 1996, Soyinka published The Open Sore of a Continent, a personal memoir of the Nigerian crisis. Predictably, the work was banned in Nigeria, and in 1997, the Abacha government formally charged Wole Soyinka with treason. General Abacha died the following year, and the treason charges were dropped by his successors. From 1960 to 1964, Soyinka was the co-editor of Black Orpheus, an important literary journal. From 1960 onward, he taught literature and drama and headed theatre groups at various Nigerian universities, including those of Ibadan, Ife, and Lagos. After winning the Nobel Prize, he also was sought after as a lecturer, and many of his lectures were published, notably the Reed Lecture of 2004, as Climate Affairs in 2004. Soyinka has been married 3 times. He married British writer Barbara Dickson in 1958, Olaide Idowu, a Nigerian librarian, in 1963, and Folake Doherty, his current wife, in 1989. In 2014, Soyinka revealed he was diagnosed with prostate cancer and was cured 10 months after treatment. Soyinka writes in English, but his works are rooted in his native Nigerian and the Yoruba culture, with his legends, tales, and traditions. His writing also includes influences from Western traditions, from classical tragedies to modernist